You're listening to a podcast by Way Collective, a contemplative community for love and liberation in Santa Barbara, California. This recording was the conversation starter at our dinner and dialogue gathering with Jim Burklo on April 8th, 2026. Thanks for tuning in.
Great to be here with you tonight to break bread and bistec de res with you. That was good food. And to meet at least some of your folks so far. This is actually my third time at the Way Collective. First time was when Brian McLaren was speaking. And Brian and I have worked together for years. He and I co-founded a network of progressive Christian campus ministries called Zoe. Check it out, zoeoncampus.com. So I just love the format of what you do, the way you do it, and I got to know Tim, spent some time with Tim, who's very impressive, and I'm already learning things from Tim in my short time knowing him. So then last time I came was for Diana Butler Bass, and that was marvelous too, to be with her. So love what you're about and the way you do it, and I love the contemplative aspect of your community life here together too. That's something that means a lot to me. I teach about contemplative Christian practice. I run a weekly Zoom group. If you want to be part of it, talk to me. Every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, so I had to skip tonight. But anyway, it delves into the mystics of the church, the contemplatives that go all the way back to ancient Christianity. And that is a tradition that you are bringing life back to life in our time. And I would say the good news is that's happening in progressive Christianity all over the world, really, is a revival of this ancient practice of contemplation, which is very much connected and part of mindfulness, which we understand in secular terms, but mindfulness is certainly part of the Christian contemplative tradition all the way back. Progressive Christianity is having a moment. Leaders of progressive Christian churches are being put in jail at ICE protests around the country, 100 of them in Minneapolis, protesting the inhumane treatment of our immigrant neighbors, taking stands against the growing threat of tyranny in our country. Fundamentalist pastors, meanwhile, are loudly condemning us, progressive Christians, saying that we have been sent by Satan to lead the true faith, the followers of the true faith astray. And they're using violent language to talk about that. Spiritual warfare. Lots, of course, of evangelical folks are leaving their churches and finding their way into progressive communities like this. I think there are probably a few or several ex-evangelicals among us tonight, looking for a kinder and saner form of the faith. But what is progressive Christianity? Yeah, that is a question that people are starting to ask, and that's why I wrote this book. This is a short book that answers that question. Now, the answer that I give in this book is my answer. And I want to emphasize that because one of the most important aspects of progressive Christianity is that it has no fixed doctrine. There is no orthodoxy in it, right? There's no fixed way of believing and even practicing progressive Christianity. But there are certainly some commonalities, and that's what I want to explore with you today. So what I'm going to do is give an answer to this question: what is progressive Christianity? Lots is being written about it, a lot of progressive Christian writers out there and speakers. But what I guess what's unique about this book is that it answers the question in one book, right? It's about the whole picture of what progressive Christianity is. And again, my version of what it's about. And we'll be talking about that in our circles tonight. What's your version? How do you look at it? God is love. It's in the Bible, right? 1 John. It's the start and the finish. It is the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega of progressive Christianity. God is love. Now, is God more than love? Well, that's an interesting question that we don't have time for tonight, right? That's one to delve into deeply. But if God is no more than love and no less than love, then God is plenty divine, right? Plenty divine. God is awesome as love. And it is awesome to consider that in this chaotic, enormous universe, with churning creation and destruction, that somehow, at least in one little planet, off in some lonely corner of one particular galaxy, love has emerged. Not just love for your friends and your family, but a love that's bigger than all other love, a love that extends even to enemies, a love that extends to all people, a love that extends even to the universe as a whole. Now, if there's more to God than this agape, unconditional love, great, and we can talk about it. But agape love matters more than anything else to progressive Christians, and I think I can say that about pretty much all of us. Now, because love is a personal thing, it's something that is expressed in relationships. Because it's personal, that's why we talk about God in personal terms, talking about God as a person. But really, whenever we even use the word God or any word that references God, we're speaking in poetry, right? Because we can't wrap our words around divine love. It's bigger. It is beyond any words that we can use to describe it. For us, prayer is not asking a supernatural guy in the sky to do favors for us, particularly favors that go against the natural order of things. Now, there's certainly nothing wrong with asking for those favors. Nothing wrong with that. But for us, I would say, generally for progressive Christians, prayer is the contemplative practice that empties ourselves of our small s selves so that we can enter into communion and union with the capital S self, who is God, who is agape love. By lovingly attending to our own thoughts and emotions and bodily sensations, letting go of definitions and judgments and opinions, we observe them, but we let them go. We can drop our identification with those experiences and take on the divine role of the compassionate observer within us. That's what we do in contemplation. Let go of the small s self, enter into the capital S self. Identify with the observer self. For years at USC, when I was there, my boss and I started a program there called Mindful USC. And at one point, we had 4,000 students and staff taking our classes every year. 5-week, 1 hour each, 1.5 hour each classes. And I stayed on, once we got the thing started, I stayed on as one of the teachers. And I would find that participants very often would reach this point where they go, whoa, I am observing my thoughts, my emotions, my sensations, I'm observing the narratives that run through my mind. I am observing my relationships and my roles in the world. But wait a minute. Who's doing the watching? Who or what is doing the observing? Is that which I'm observing doing the observing? That doesn't sound right. And this would be a jarring thing for folks getting started with mindfulness practice. Kind of scary. It's like the train's running down a track, but where's the engineer, you know? Who's in charge here? And you go, whoa. And my answer when that came up, I go, well, now you have entered into religious territory, right? The religions of the world have something to say about this. God is the observer within us when we are fully attentive to what's going on. Progressive Christians read the Bible as the language of our faith. Language, right? Now, is there anybody here who thinks that the English language is superior to all other languages? Not I. I don't think hardly any of us would say that. But if we think of Christianity as a language and the Bible as the dictionary, you might say, of this language, the starting point of this language, that is a certain point of view about what the Bible is about. It's not a rule book about how we're supposed to live or think or believe. It is an inexhaustible source of imagery, poetry, stories that we use to express our spiritual experience. And that is exactly the way the mystics of the church, all the way from ancient times until today, have viewed the Bible. Right? The Bible is the source of the language we use to express our own experience. The gospel story of Jesus is mostly mythical, but it is a sacred myth. Sacred because it has come up into the world from the depths of human consciousness, subconsciousness. It is a product of our deepest selves. It reflects our experience. His story is a reflection of our story. It's perhaps the greatest myth ever told, but then we as progressive Christians are called to humility because we follow a guy who did not come into Jerusalem on a high horse. He came in on a donkey. Yeah? We follow a humble rabbi. So we have to ask, how could the religion of a humble man become so full of itself that would claim to be the only true religion? It just doesn't add up. So we are called to be humble about our religion. And that means recognizing that other religions may be, not necessarily, but they might be as good for other people as our religion is for us. We aspire to this humility in our relationships with people of other faiths or of no faith at all, no religion at all. We strive to follow Jesus' path of radical compassion. Jesus was a human being who found the God of agape love in himself. In Paul's words, he emptied himself. He emptied himself and took the form of a slave or a servant. He set his ego aside and understood his central essence, his ultimate being, to be one with the love who is God. And he taught others to do the same. He teaches us today to do the same. So his divinity is our divinity when we go to that place, stepping aside from our egos. Surely the historical figure of Jesus was an extraordinarily kind and healing and spiritually awakened being. We can be pretty confident of that. But then after his death, of course, mythology built around his story, and that's much of what we read in the Gospels are reflective of this mythology. But just because it isn't factually true doesn't mean that it's not true, right? Just because it may not be all historically correct doesn't mean that it is not a reflection of our deepest aspirations and guidance for us toward the way collective, the way of Jesus, the way of compassion, the way of Christ consciousness. The sacred myth of Jesus' life and death saves us from selfishness, shallowness, greed, and cruelty, leads us to practice radical compassion and work for justice. And the cross, it focuses us. It's like the crosshairs. It aims us at awareness of the ways that we crucify ourselves and others, and awareness of the forgiveness and the redemption that's on the other side of that cross. Christianity is not a way of fixed beliefs and rules that so many people find objectionable today. When we understand that Christianity is the way of the Christ and is a way of compassion and humility, when we understand that the Bible is not historically factual, but rather is this endless source of ways that we can express our spiritual journeys, when we understand that, all the big objections to Christianity fall away. Because we embrace, as progressive Christians, we embrace common sense, we embrace science, we embrace facts, the search for facts. A lot of Christians are very focused on orthodoxy, the correct beliefs, correct ways of thinking about the faith. Progressive Christianity is about otherdoxy. Otherdoxy is where we're focused on others, on the holy other, who is divine love, and on other people, so that we can be attentive to their needs and respond to them. If something in the Bible looks inhumane or cruel, it's a product of a historical context that doesn't apply to us today. And we understand that in our relationship with the Scripture. We embrace progress in society and technology. Our churches were the first to ordain women, the first to ordain queer people, the first to perform same-sex marriages. I performed a same-sex marriage 30 years ago for the first time. And we led the way, really. Those weddings that we performed convinced people that same-sex marriage is marriage. You go to one of those ceremonies, you go, oh, it's the same, hello. And that convinced lots of people to support it and make it legal. We, at the same time that we are comfortable, you might say, we make people feel comfortable if they're sort of part of mainstream society. We're not like a cultish kind of movement that's against science and common sense. At the same time, we are countercultural, very much, because we're against the culture of shallowness, the culture of greed, the culture of selfishness. We're very much standing against those cultural forces and in favor of justice and peace, protection of our environment, protection of the most vulnerable. We follow the example of Jesus, who put the most vulnerable people first. Yes? And we measure the goodness of our society on the basis of how well it serves the needs of the most vulnerable, the sick, the poor, the troubled, the prisoners, the immigrants. And that we understand there are a lot of ways that we might follow to achieve those goals. We're not about isms, right? We're skeptical of isms. We know there's not just one political or economic dogma to follow in building the kingdom of heaven on earth. We're committed to hanging in there for the long term, for the struggle for peace and justice and social change. We do life together as progressive Christians in community like this. For us, the church is a fitness center for love. Yeah? Sometimes it's heavy lifting. Do I hear an amen? You know, I always say, if you belong to a church that doesn't have any people in it that you find obnoxious, go find another church. Because, you know, Jesus picked out people to be his disciples who are sometimes a pain in the ass. And I think he did it on purpose, because that's how we get the work out, yeah? Get the work out so that we're fit for love in our churches and beyond. We get together. We remember our sacred stories, the sacred Christian myths, so that we can lift them up and employ them in expressing our journeys. We stick together to support each other through good times and bad in our personal lives. We commit ourselves to serving our fellow people in and beyond our congregations. Our churches are defined not by walls of dogma. You got to believe this in order to be in. That's a wall. Our churches are defined by a common center, a communion table that's welcomed, where everybody's welcome, whether they believe anything about anything or not. As is, people of all ages and wages, stations in life, welcome to this common center. What is progressive Christianity? That's my answer. What's yours? Let's have a conversation.
Thanks for listening to this podcast by Way Collective. To keep up with our community, you can subscribe to this podcast, go to www.waycollective.org, or follow us on Instagram at @WayCollective. Peace and every good, y'all.